Welcome to Proven and Probable. I'm Maurice Jackson, and joining us for a conversation is the founder of Capitalism and Morality and a highly acclaimed advisor to institutional investors is Jayant Bhandari. Mr. Bhandari, we're thrilled to have you back on the show, sir.
Thanks very much for having me on again, Maurice.
Jayant, we have a lot of ground to cover today, from geopolitics to natural resources to philosophy. Let's begin today in China, where I understand you spent a considerable amount of time since we last spoke. What can you share with us about your recent visit there that has you intrigued about China?
Well, Maurice, I was in China when we last talked, and I'm back in China today. I spent a lot of time in East Asia. I spent a fair bit of my time in Tokyo and elsewhere in East Asia. I am enamored with East Asia. The reason is that East Asia has not made the mistakes that the Western countries made. Now, when I go to a North American city, it does not matter what it is, Toronto, Vancouver, Calgary, or whatever, they look more and more like a train station in a third world country, the streets of these cities. Because we have pretty much opened the gates of these countries for all kinds of people to enter and make these countries their own. So there's no chance of assimilation. There's chaos in those countries. And you can visibly see chaos in those countries if you don't consistently spend time in your city. So I am enamored with East Asia because East Asia has declined to accept the mistakes that the Western countries have made in the last 50 to 60 years, despite the fact that most of the good qualities of East Asia were actually imported from Western society. So these are European values in East Asia, including in China. If you talk with the Chinese, he wants to learn English, he wants to understand English and European mannerisms. He wants to copy, he wants to emulate Europeans. And at the same time, Western media is demeaning China as if there's something wrong about Chinese people. I mean, China is an amazing country in so many ways. So I'm enamored, and I see East Asia as the future of humanity because Europeans have given up control over their destiny.
Oh, you're going to ruffle some feathers with that one. From an outsider's perspective, I'm of the opinion, and I'm sure many Americans are of the opinion as well, that China is dominant to the United States in many facets such as infrastructure, military, the procurement of natural resources, and innovative technology, albeit some of it, as you just referenced, include imitating and not respecting intellectual property rights. Number one, am I mistaken? And number two, how much does culture, philosophy, and demographics play into this narrative?
But so, Maurice, it is, when I look at China, when I travel in China, and after our call, I'm going to another city, we are driving to another place. The infrastructure of China is mostly built and copied based on how American infrastructure is built. The quality of roads is, of course, much better in China. They have very good tunnels everywhere. So the quality of infrastructure is outstanding today. In many ways, China feels like a good combination of the United States and Japan, which sounds like a strange thing to say because the reason is that China is a huge country. So they have open spaces as the United States or Canada or Australia have, but also they have retained the ways of doing things that are Japanese or Korean or Chinese, the East Asian ways, and adapted the Western values in their society. So it looks like a very good combination of the United States and Japan. But of course, I must be cognizant of the fact that I'm spending a lot more money than the local Chinese does. So what I'm saying does not mean that the life of a local Chinese is similar to that of an American or similar to that of a Japanese. But if you are reasonably well off, China offers you amazing facilities. I go out to a nice restaurant in China, and we spend something like $10 per person. That's the kind of money you spend. I went out to a golf club to to kick some balls at the club, and it cost me about $10 per person for 4 racks of balls in a really nice golf club. So this is the kind of country this has become. The regulatory issues in China are minimal. A friend of mine I was talking with recently applied for his driving license, and from the test to getting the driving license took him less than an hour, with the person helping him out in every way possible with documentation. So China is in so many ways so good. Now, there is indeed a fear to do with loss of difficulty in finding jobs. Young people are increasingly finding it tough to get jobs. But this is more because China has moved on so rapidly. Their educational system hasn't really adjusted itself to the changing job skill requirements. So people who are coming out of universities are not necessarily fully prepared for what is on the offer from companies. So because of this job mismatch, companies are finding it difficult to find skilled labor, whereas people, of course, can't find jobs. So a large number of people are unemployed. But at the same time, it's a stable country. It's a peaceful country. Government regulations are limited. Government interference is limited. And people feel mostly safe and free. Now, this is something very, very shocking for most people. But, again, when I'm in China, I feel extremely safe. You leave these days, in major urban cities, people leave their bags on their coffee table or on their seat on the coffee shop and go away to the washroom, come back 15 minutes later. So they feel safe that the country has a security system. So there are a lot of good things to do with China. And finally, Maurice, when I said that China sometimes feel like a mixture of America and Japan, you go to a local supermarket, including Walmart, and you realize that the variety of goods available in those shops is very, very likely much higher than what you find in the United States, because China has the economies of scale. It has 4 or 5 times the population of the United States, a great infrastructure, and it is a country that is growing. It produces pretty much 50% of everything we consume today.
How do you attribute all of the virtues you just referenced to the fact that they're a homogeneous society? Or am I wrong in that? Is that a misconception?
Well, it is not a misconception at all. And being homogeneous is extraordinarily important. You have to strive to become homogeneous. The moment you become heterogeneous, Maurice, your society starts to crumble politically and socially. That's what you see as an ongoing fact in South Africa and in India. And increasingly in the United States. Look at how badly the races don't mix in the United States. So staying homogeneous is an extraordinarily important thing to do. And the fact that Western countries are now increasingly non-European, ethnically non-European majority countries, they are headed for a suicide. And I use this word literally because Western countries will destroy themselves because they have taken the path of heterogeneity in racial, cultural, and political terms. And that will really, as termite destroys a structure, destroy the Western societies. And that's why I am certainly trying to establish myself a bit in East Asia, despite the fact that I continue to live in the United States.
Jayant, if you're hearing a loud applause in the background, I think everyone listening is giving you a standing ovation on that. Speaking of demographics and being homogeneous, you recently conducted a presentation expounding on the demographic changes happening throughout the world and the unforeseen duplicitous impacts you foresee. Can you share more with us?
Maurice, it is very important to understand that the third world countries are third world countries not because of their tyrants. The third world countries are the way they are, including why they have those tyrants, because of the local people. It is the culture and the kind of local people that live in those third world countries, that the third world countries are the way they are. Now, when you bring in those third world country people, you bring in third world culture to your countries. That is, that is just simple, basic reason 101. And now Western countries somehow decided that this was not relevant. Now, here is the situation, Maurice, today. The spine of the Western society is the United States of America. It continues to be, in my view, the best country on the planet. But here is the problem. If you look at the demographics of those below 18 years in the United States, more than 50% of those people are non-European in ethnic terms. Now, it matters, Maurice, your race, your culture, the society that you grow up in, really matters in deciding what the future would be like. So the United States now has 43% of its population that is ethnically non-European, which means that within just over a decade, the United States will no longer be a European country. It will be a Europeans will be a minority in that country. Now, that does not mean that there's this strict 50% points that I'm waiting for, which will come in about 10 years. For me, that will only signify a paradigm shift in how you will look at numbers. But if you really look at how voting has been happening in the United States, Republican Party just simply refuses to win the popular vote. Since 1988, no Republican Party person has won the presidential election based on popular vote, except for George W. Bush Jr., who won because in the second term because he was a wartime president. But apart from that, the popular vote since 1988 has consistently gone to the Democratic Party. Now, eventually, as we see now, Electoral College is getting trumped by a popular vote. And as a result, in the future, having a Trump as the president or George W. Bush Jr. as the first-time president would not have happened because both of them actually lost popular vote. Mm-hmm. Third world people vote in a third world like ways, which means that they vote on tribal basis, they vote for psychopaths. And as time goes by, America will increasingly have a third world country politics based on tribal affiliations, based on magical thinking, based on irrationality, based on immorality, because these are the essential ingredients of third world people. And now they will be more than 50% of the population. But the inflection point was several decades back in the past. America has been degrading as a result of this. So yes, Maurice, coming back to our original point, the West should have stayed homogeneous, but now there is really nothing you can do about it because all these people have American passports. Canada and New Zealand are only a step behind. Canada and New Zealand both will be ethnically non-European majority countries in less than 2 decades. And that is baked in the cake because this is just going to be a result of the demographics of people who are already in the country. Even if you forget completely any new immigrants, this is all baked in the cake. Europe will be just 2 steps behind America. But remember, if America falls apart, everything else will fall apart in the Western society because America keeps the structure of the West intact. In fact, with America weakening, you are now starting to see problems all over the world. Mexico just elected a far left socialist as the president. Chile is burnt down today basically because leftists are in power. Peru has the same problem. So Latin America is becoming increasingly leftist. Africa is someone we don't even care about anymore. Africa will have 50% of the world's population by the end of this century, when it had only 9% of the world's population in 1955. So the world's demographics are changing very rapidly, and Europeans are, in just over a decade, will completely lose political control, not just of the world, but even of their own societies, because they are becoming minorities in their own countries.
That's a paradigm shift. I don't know we can even conceptually contemplate. But we're seeing the degradation. And anyone listening for the first time to our interview here with Mr. Bhandari, we've had the pleasure of interviewing Hughes now, since 2016? Listen to those interviews. Think about that time frame. Listen to what this man has shared with you, and you'll see he has been spot on. And unfortunately, I hate to admit that because some of the not predictions, or you could call them predictions, but what you've said has come to fruition, and it hasn't been for the best. But you forewarned us. You have that vision and that ability to foresee things, and I just pray that everyone is listening here, they take the right actions and do what they can in whatever respects they can to benefit and or make peace with what will come. And you reference elections. Let's talk about the election coming up in the U.S. Any thoughts there? Do you see Trump winning this or Biden winning this or a third party surprise?
Well, I really hope Trump wins the election because that is the only hope the U.S. has. But at the same time, remember that degradation is now baked in the cake. You can only delay it by 3 or 4 years because popular vote will eventually completely trump electoral college. And popular vote will be into the foreseeable future, actually increasingly in the foreseeable future, on the side of the Democratic Party. And the Democratic Party will increasingly elect psychopaths like Kamala Harris as their vice presidents, or even Biden as their presidents. So the politics will continue to worsen. I do hope we get a 3 or 4 year, 5 year reprieve through Trump and delay this degradation. But as I said, the problem with the US is its citizenry. More than 50% of its citizenry is of non-European ethnicity, and it matters because they increasingly vote. They vote for. They predominantly vote for the left, and they will destroy and convert America into a third world country.
Speaking of elected officials, how about Argentina? The president there. What are your thoughts on his job so far? How he's been doing?
Excellent. Absolutely impressive. I'm very happy that he got elected, but I'm still going to hold my final view on Argentina because, Maurice, I have spent time in Argentina. Argentina is a lifestyle country, as Canada is in many ways, and Argentinians vote on the basis of freebies and et cetera, on liberal progressive policies. So what in my view actually happened in Argentina was that Milei was the only option left for them. They had tried everything and everything was just getting worse. So Milei has some time to change a few things. But once the lives of people in Argentina start becoming more comfortable, they are mentally likely to shift back to their leftist ways, which means that I am doubtful that Milei would be re-elected if the economic situation in Argentina is better. Now, that's an interesting situation, but that's how the world works.
Now, before we move on to natural resources, let's visit India, where they recently held elections with Modi retaining the helm. But with a catch this time, what can you share with us?
Well, Modi lost his majority, so he has to now depend on minority parties to stay afloat. That does not mean that he's in a weak situation. He will, in my view, continue to be the prime minister for the next 5 years. And there will be a lot of horse trading happening in the parliament. People will be paid tens of millions of dollars to shift their allegiance from the opposition party to the ruling BJP party. But the fact remains, Maurice, that India is a third world country, and it is increasingly becoming a fourth world country and will eventually become a fifth or sixth world country. It is degrading very rapidly. It is becoming depraved very rapidly, and there's nothing you can do about it. Institutions simply do not exist in that country. They are now shells of what they were. A termite has hollowed out everything institutionally in that country. You cannot get justice. Politicians do nothing except to fanaticize people and to offer freebies. And irrespective of whether you are the ruling BJP party or you are the opposition party, all you do is either deal with religious fanaticism or offer freebies to people. There's no vision for the future of the country, and the citizenry itself is very apathetic. It has always been apathetic. There's no moral and rational fabric in that country, something that I have referred back to you many times in the past. Indians are irrational. They think through magical thinking. They don't have a moral fabric. They don't have a rational fabric. So there's no path or vision for the future. So India will continue to degrade. Modi has been a catalyst in that. Modi has degraded the country quite a bit. But I won't blame it all on him, because the real blame goes to the people who are responsible for having a vision for their country, and they don't have it. And the worst of all, Maurice, is that the so-called educated people have less vision for the future than the uneducated people. So that is why India's future is really horrible. And 1 out of 6 people on the planet is an Indian. So expect more Indians coming to the United States, more Indians coming to Canada. Actually, a lot of people crossing to the United States from the Mexican border are Indian. 27% of immigrants in Canada today are coming from India.
You know, you have a Twitter page, and you post a lot of videos there from India. And so if someone has any disputes to what you're sharing, you should take a look at Mr. Bhandari's Twitter page. What is that Twitter handle, sir?
Jayant Bhandari 5.
Now, moving on to natural resources, let's begin with physical precious metals. Gold and silver have lost a little steam since March and April, but have held relatively consistent. Which precious metals have your attention at the moment, and why?
I think it's easy to say that they have lost some esteem just because they have fallen by $100 when they have gone up by hundreds of dollars per ounce over the last few years. So in my view, gold and silver have done extremely well. They have performed the way precious metals should have performed. And the world is becoming increasingly chaotic. As I just referred to you earlier, demographic changes in the West will destroy the West. So there is a lot of chaos coming. And without Pax Americana, the third world countries will become tribal, savage, and barbaric over the next couple of decades, which means that there will be massive amount of chaos in the third world countries. So a lot of precious metals will be bought by people with wealth. Now, as I rightly implied in the meantime as well, East Asia, the China, Japan, and Korea will stay sane and stable going forward. And that's why I am more interested in these countries. But because of this chaos, this churning that is starting to happening, or actually which has been happening for the last 2 decades or so, and will increase pace, this chaos and churning will lead to increased interest in precious metals. I pay most of my attention to gold, primarily because silver is also an industrial commodity, and there's a lot of silver that gets used in several industrial purposes, including for solar energy.
So that you kind of answered my next question, was if you were to begin your precious metals portfolio today, which physical precious metal would you purchase and why? And is the answer gold?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think within my precious metals, it's like keeping cash. When I want to keep cash, I prefer US dollar, despite I know it's paper currency, it's fiat currency, and it has no future. But if I have to have fiat currency, I prefer US dollar in my pocket, because when I travel around the world, I can use it wherever I am in the moment. All fiat currencies lose their values. But similarly, gold is something that is accepted everywhere in the world, and it does not lose its value, because in ounce terms, it stays the same ounces. And for now, it has been catching up with inflation. So the price has been going up in response to increased inflation. But I think price of gold will go up faster than inflation going forward, because there is geopolitical chaos. It will go up in response to chaos increasing in the world as well. So gold is the primary thing I think about. But my net worth is invested not just in gold, it goes into a lot of other areas. And I invest increasingly in East Asia, because I see that in the medium and long term, East Asia will be more stable. Of course, Western countries are wonderful countries even today, but then what it is today does not mean it will continue to be the same in the future. And I'm afraid of the future of the West.
And as a reminder for our audience members, I'm a licensed broker for Miles Franklin Precious Metals Investments, where we offer physical delivery of gold, silver, platinum, palladium, and rhodium, along with BRINKS depository accounts and precious metal IRAs. And be sure to subscribe to our website, provenandprobable.com. Subscription is free, so it's 100% currency back guarantee if you don't like our our content there. And you're always more than welcome to give me a call if you have any questions and or you're ready to place your first order, or you're an existing client. You always know you can call or text me at 855-505-1900. Moving on to resource stocks. Jayant, you're one of the most respected names when it comes to resource stocks analysis and arbitrage opportunities. Why are resource stocks lagging relative to strong prices in gold, silver, copper, and uranium?
I think precious metal stock will do well in the near future. What is happening, Maurice, is that there are many mergers happening currently in the mining sector. These mergers will result into cash flowing into the junior mining sector, which has been repressed for many reasons. When that money flows into the junior mining sector, in my view, I would not be surprised if overnight there is an explosive increase in share prices of some of the good companies. But at the same time, Maurice, remember that 90% of junior mining companies are totally worthless. They are run by wrong people. They don't have real projects. And there are a lot of scams in the industry. So 90% of these companies are headed towards extinction, but 10% of the companies which market cannot differentiate from the remaining 90, which have been repressed, will, in my view, see explosive growth in their share prices over the next few months or maybe a year. If nothing else, because of mergers and acquisitions that continue to happen. There are about 10, 12 mergers and acquisitions currently in process, more than I have ever seen in my life in the mining industry.
So that poses the question then, have we hit capitulation? And if yes, what indicators are you looking for confirmation?
The market has actually done reasonably well, Maurice. So, I know many of us still think that the market hasn't really started performing. But a lot of companies, irrespective of who you are, if you have a decent portfolio, you should have seen a reasonably positive performance of your portfolio. Particularly because some of these junior mining companies have been bought by senior companies. So you have faced an immediate arbitrage premium based on the merger. So I have seen those things. People I talk with are happy that their portfolios have actually done very well to reasonably well. But there is still an expectation of an explosive increase in share prices in some of the stocks.
Speaking of stocks, are there any value propositions at the moment that have your attention that we should be considering?
Okay, so Maurice, let's talk about 2 or 3, 4 arbitrage opportunities, because for me, arbitrage opportunities are very interesting because I get to buy something at a discount to the market. And then if I like those companies, then I just buy those things at a discount and book that upside very quickly. So let's talk about a few companies. One is a company called Base Resources. It's a company listed on Australian Stock Exchange, and it is being bought by a Canadian company. Now, the price of Base Resources is Australian dollar 26 cents Australian. There's a 17% arbitrage in owning Base Resources. Now, Base Resources, after the merger, will no longer be trading on ASX. The reason why people who live in Australia, who have accounts with Australia listed company, brokerage only accounts, they are afraid that their Canadian shares will not be tradable anymore. So they want to sell their shares as soon as possible. But if I can own these base resource shares in a company on a platform like Interactive Brokers, my shares will automatically convert into Canadian shares, and I can benefit from that 17% arbitrage upside. So base resources, the ticker is BSC and it's trading at 26 cents. I have no reason to bid higher. There's another company called Osino Resources. It's trading at $1.76. They have a project in Namibia. A merger process is now complete, except that they need an approval from Namibian government. The arbitrage upside is 7% in cash terms, because while you will be buying shares for $1.76, you will get $1.90 in about a month's time when the merger is closed. Now, remember, a 7% upside does not look very exciting, but if you annualize it, it becomes more than 100% or at least 100%. So it's a very exciting upside in my view. Two more companies, Maurice. One is Black Wolf Copper. The ticker is BWCG. At 12.5 cent current share price, the arbitrage upside is 12%. And Argonaut Gold, the ticker is AR. It's trading at 41.5 cents and the arbitrage upside is about 8%. Now, all these four companies I have told you, except for base resources, the mergers will be over within the next 1 month or 3 weeks. Base resources, I think, will take another 2 months or so. So you can invest in them and profit from arbitrage within the next few weeks in Osino Resources, Argonaut Gold, and Black Wolf Copper.
Well, Jayant, on behalf of all of us, thank you for sharing your insights, because, again, that's just as a courtesy to our audience members, we really do appreciate you sharing that with us. Now, in closing, Jayant, all of the aforementioned in one way or another are impacted by philosophy. Why is philosophy paramount for us to understand and yet so underappreciated and understood?
Well, I mean, philosophy and Western values to me are very similar concepts. Philosophy is a Western product. And slowly, either through wealth or whatever that happened in the Western society, we have increasingly lost touch with Western values and philosophy. The reason why we have these crazy wokeness now, you are exposing babies to drag dances and a show of genitals, which is absolutely crazy to me. So I think attaching ourselves to spiritual values of the Western society is extremely important. And that is why I run a yearly seminar in Vancouver called Capitalism and Morality. I was in Vancouver 10 days back to run the seminar. And that is what philosophy and Western values are what underpin humanity as a distinct species from the animal kingdom. Without those things, we were actually no different from animals, Maurice, really. And if you visit a third world country, go to any third world country, go 20, 30 kilometers outside the urban areas, and people pretty much live like animals. So, philosophy and Western values are so important to give us some dignity and a decent life that we have enjoyed in the Western society.
Yeah, Jayant, I've learned so much under your philosophical form, which bridges that gap, if you will, on the importance of philosophy. You referenced capitalism and morality. Please introduce someone new to it. What is capitalism and morality? Where is it conducted, and who all do you have speaking there?
Well, I've been running this seminar for the last 15 years now. This year we had Dr. Walter Block speaking. Rick Rule was there. There were about 10, 12 speakers. They are not coming to my mind right now. But they addressed issues that are relevant to the West, relevant to civilization, and mostly topics that we usually don't talk about in public these days, because political correctness has had such a suffocating grip on the Western society today. So we come to capitalism and morality to speak about things that we would not otherwise. And this is very interesting, Maurice. Political correctness has such a horrible grip on the psyche of the Western society that they think that they have freedom of speech in the West. I think today I have more freedom of speech in China than I do in the United States, which is such a sad thing. So I want to run this seminar, expose people to ideas that they are no longer allowed to be exposed to because of political correctness.
And actually, if I'm not mistaken, you've had some threats in reference to the hosting of Capitalism and Morality by the left, if you will, because they wanted to censor what you were saying.
Yes, I mean, that keeps happening. I was also cancelled from even a mining conference as an attendee, a conference that I was there in Frankfurt in Germany, and they cancelled my registration because I seem to trigger people and make them feel unsafe. Which is so strange, really. We have become such snowflakes that we can't even handle ideas that now stab us. So it's a very sad situation with the cancel culture that we are developing in the West.
When and where will the next Capitalism and Morality be conducted?
Well, it will be 2025, late August or early September. I still have to decide on the date.
And the location will be?
It will still be downtown Vancouver.
And Jayant, for someone
Canada,
who wants to register for the symposium, how can they do it?
They can go to my website, jayantbhandari.com. There's a tab called Capitalism and Morality. You can watch all the past videos of the seminar for free. And there will be a link for registration to the next year's seminar as well.
And I understand you'll have the videos for this year's presentation up here in the near future. Is that correct?
Well, in just about 2 weeks, Maurice, and I'm looking forward to taking your help to upload those videos.
Oh, my pleasure, sir. Last question, sir. What did I forget to ask?
Well, I think we have covered a lot, Maurice. I really have not much to say except that I really think that the world is headed for a chaos, and people should be protecting their wealth by going internationalizing themselves and paying more attention to East Asia. And they should stop demonizing China until they have actually visited and spent some meaningful time there. Just go and admire the progress these people have gone through in the last 2-3 decades, rather be intellectually vulnerable to the Western media and Western politicians who do not want you to see China in positive light.
Well, Mr. Bhandari, it's been a pleasure speaking with you. Wishing you the absolute best, sir.
Thank you very much for the opportunity, Maurice.
All the best, sir.
The information presented on Proven and Probable is provided for educational and informational purposes only, without any express or implied warranty of any kind, including warranties of accuracy, completeness, or fitness for any particular purpose. The information is not intended to be and does not constitute financial, investment, or trading advice, or any other advice. You should not make any financial, investment, or trading decision based on any of the information presented without first undertaking independent due diligence and consultation with a professional broker or competent financial advisor.